I've started to build a bit of confidence now that I'm getting healthy from my calf issues that I had around 10 weeks ago, where now I'm trying to figure out how to put more force into the ground during my upright sprinting sessions. I did go pretty slow today during the 40-60-40-60 workout, with a few 60s where I ran 8.3 and a few 40s where I ran like 5 mid. And I like to take my wins, but I hate getting complacent and not working on anything. So I'm hatching an evil plan to destroy my weaknesses. But before I start working on this idea of putting force into the ground, I'd like to go over how I am approaching this very cautiously, because I see working at absolute intensity like this as pretty dangerous. And only now I'm starting to get more confident, because I've worked through kind of a prerequisite technique that makes this a bit safer for my hamstrings. So about a month ago, when I was hitting a tempo workout, which is like a sub-maximal effort session, Coach E and I found a habit where I start to cast my leg out as I hit higher speeds. And the theory is that if I keep putting on the miles or like meters at this high intensity, it puts a lot of stress on my hamstring at the lengthened position, so that eventually the wear and tear leads to the dreaded hamstring tear, which now leads to the next problem, which is how do I create an environment for me to actually make the changes to my technique? I first used this software that I wrote to figure out at what point does my technique start to break down and I start to really cast my leg out, and it was around 7.5 meters per second. So I have this effort level kind of locked into my mind, and then I played with the speed until I was able to control the casting of my leg. So this is really good because it tells me I can physically make the change, and it tells me two things I can do to improve the situation. The first one being I need to take a hit to my ego and my speed so that I can consistently work on this better position during my tempo workouts. And it tells me that I need to be able to sit through the boredom of having to focus throughout my warm-ups and my drills, so that I can just drill this new, better pattern over and over again. And around 1 month later from the day that I ran this bad rep, when I increased the speed, the correction to not cast my leg became more or less second nature, which is really surprising to me because it's new to actually see my own improvement. So now I feel more confident to work on the next step, which is force into the ground. So the way I see it is that in every running cycle, there's a position that everyone can hit that makes it super effective and efficient to put force into the ground. And this position is this: toeing off with good hip extension and good knee lift. The way I have these positions framed in my mind is, as my knee reaches that absolute height of each cycle, I'm going to engage my glutes and my hamstrings to bring it from that top portion to immediately bring my foot back into the ground with as much force as possible. And if you look at graphs of force application when people are running, most of the force happens right when the foot makes contact with the ground. So I'm going to think about the way my foot travels through the air to make as much punch as possible, to create as much of a spike in whatever physical graph if you were to measure it. And then immediately after that punch, I just pick my foot up off the ground back into the next hip extension and knee lift. It all sounds nice in theory, but there's a possibility that this cue won't work for me in practice, but that's okay. If I can figure out how to improve my technique and get that feeling with just one step, then it opens me up to being able to plan for every instant I want to practice this feeling. So within my warm-up, I now have a cueing I can tell myself to give me intent behind every single drill. And one drill in particular that I think will really help me is the fast leg drill, where I'm isolating one foot at a time, practicing that punching motion. And then when I go to my tempo workouts, instead of thinking about not casting my leg out because I have that figured out, I can now work on force application straight down into the ground. And then finally, when I get to these longer, higher intensity sprint sessions, I'll have both an opportunity to practice these new techniques and an opportunity to see the result of working on it throughout every other aspect of my training. And this just scratches the surface of how I can put more force into the ground, but that's for other videos. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to see how this affects my upright sprints, where we'll see how my technique changes and how my 5.6 or something to 40 meters and 8.3 to 60 meters improves.